proceed to calendar 136, H.R. 4016.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is really hard to believe that we are nearly at the end of the year, and that is the end of the year since we started this session of Congress and also of President Trump's second term in office. And in that time, there is so much that we have done to get this country back on track and to begin to undo the damage that was inflicted on so many Americans by the Biden administration. We could take a look at the economy, because under the Biden administration, inflation reached its highest point in over 4 decades. Far-left regulations killed jobs, and it held industry back. And our trade deficit exploded. Now, in Tennessee, that hurt our farmers and our manufacturers. Today, the U.S. economy is on the path to being stronger than ever before, thanks to the president's pro-growth agenda, trillions of dollars in new investments, the largest tax cut in history. All of that came about through the big, beautiful bill. Inflation is down 69%, 67%. Jobless claims are beginning to come down, and the most recent data shows that the U.S. economy is growing at an annual rate of 3.8%. Now, that's the fastest pace in nearly 2 years. At the same time, President Trump and his administration have completely reversed the Biden policies and failures at the southern border. For 4 years, President Biden claimed that there was nothing that he could do, nothing at all, to stop more than 10 million illegal aliens from entering our country, including tens of thousands of convicted criminals. At one point, the daily average of border encounters topped 15,000. And across the country, Americans suffered the tragic consequences, including rampant migrant crime. Today, our border is secure thanks to President Trump's strong enforcement of the rule of law. Last month, there were just under 8,000 Border Patrol apprehensions at the southwest border, 95% lower than the monthly average under President Biden. And unlike the Biden administration, President Trump is turning these lawbreakers away instead of welcoming them with taxpayer-funded benefits. For the 6th straight month, there were 0 parole releases into our country. By comparison, in October of 24 alone, Biden released more than 10,000 illegal aliens into the country. President Trump and Republicans are also working to undo the damage done by President Biden's 2-tiered justice system. Under his watch, the Justice Department and the FBI were rotten to the core, targeting anyone who stood up to the deep state. They raided Mar-a-Lago, indicted President Trump on baseless charges, and weaponized America's top law enforcement agency against conservatives, parents, and people of faith. Through Jack Smith's Arctic Frost probe, this abuse of power reached the halls of Congress, surveilling lawmakers over our political beliefs. The American people want one tier of justice, equal justice for all. That's why President Trump and Republicans are fighting for full accountability for those who weaponized our government. We must ensure that this abuse of power never, ever happens again. Under the president's leadership, our federal law enforcement agencies are focused on their core purpose, enforcing the rule of law and fighting crime. Now, when we talk about fighting crime in Tennessee, we look at Memphis. Last year, the city recorded the highest crime rate in the country, and for years, Memphians have demanded action to address the crime crisis. Now, President Trump is delivering it with the Memphis Safe Task Force. By coordinating efforts between more than a dozen federal and state agencies, including the Memphis Police Department, Tennessee National Guard, FBI, Justice Department, U.S. Marshals, the task force is delivering incredible results. In just over a month of operations, authorities have made more than 2,800 arrests, including 164 warrant arrests for aggravated assault, 185 for domestic violence, 83 for narcotics, 34 for robbery, 22 for sexual assault, 25 for homicide. The task force has also located more than 110 missing children. In many ways, the Memphis Safe Task Force is serving as a national model for President Trump's broader mission to reduce violent crime across the country. That is why I am asking unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the consideration of S-Res 505, which is at the desk. Further, that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there an objection?
Mr. President.
Senator from Connecticut.
Mr. President, reserving the right to object. My understanding is that this is a resolution that's been fairly recently introduced, so I just got the chance to look at it just really minutes ago. But it is a concerning resolution. I just want to talk about why I am going to object. First of all, my friend from Tennessee is right. Tennessee has a crime problem. Tennessee has the 6th highest rate of gun crime in the nation. If you look at the list of the top 10 states with the highest rates of gun crime, it's Wyoming, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, Arkansas, Montana, Oklahoma, all states represented by Republican senators, all states with Republican legislatures, all states with Republican governors. These aren't states that skimp on law enforcement, but they are states that have wildly irresponsible gun laws. They are states that don't invest in interrupting cycles of violence. So it is true that there is a pretty significant violent crime problem in Wyoming and in Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana, Arkansas, Montana, Oklahoma, and in Tennessee. But I just came across this article from the Tennessee Lookout, which quotes data compiled by the University of Memphis, and it says that the increase in arrests in Memphis have been for nonviolent offenses. In fact, a quote from the General Sessions Court Clerk Tammy Sawyer says this is supposed to be a Make Memphis Safe task force, and really what it is a Make Memphis Drive the Speed Limit task force. In fact, the University of Memphis discovered that there hasn't been any influx of new cases involving violent crimes. It seems as if the statistics that the senator just referenced aren't really different than any other month. What's happening is that there's just a lot more traffic arrests and a lot more nonviolent drug arrests. I came across another article entitled, "I Don't Feel Safe. Black Memphis Residents Report Harassment by Trump's Police Task Force." This is a long article detailing several instances of pretty horrific treatment of Memphis's black residents, including racial profiling and other civil rights offenses. I came across another article, this is just in like the last 5 minutes because I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this, which details a disturbing pattern under President Trump of law enforcement resources being diverted from combating child abuse, sex trafficking, and terrorism because of this apparent obsession with safe driving in Memphis, or this obsession with harassing and locking up peaceful immigrants. So it just doesn't feel like the words in this resolution match up with the reality right now. It seems as if this task force is locking up people and arresting people for nonviolent offenses. It seems as if we're diverting resources from really serious crimes like terrorism and child abuse. It feels like there are some potential civil rights abuses happening in Memphis. But it also just is written in a way that is probably much more appropriate for a campaign flyer. The resolve clause is recognizing the monumental success of Donald Trump's decisive leadership. It calls Donald Trump the most pro-law enforcement president in history. I think this is probably better in a flyer for Donald Trump's re-election campaign in 2028 that he wants to run rather than on the Senate floor. And by the way, in closing, talk to the Capitol Police here about whether Donald Trump is the most pro-law enforcement president in the history of the country. Talk to the police officer who was beat over the head by a flagpole by a rioter in this building who was pardoned by Donald Trump. Ask the police officer who was tased in the neck by one of Donald Trump's supporters and then pardoned whether Donald Trump is the most pro-law enforcement president in history. This president pardoned every single violent rioter. All you guys said, oh, well, you know, there were some nonviolent rioters here and they should be let off the hook, but no, we shouldn't let off the violent rioters. Donald Trump pardoned every single violent rioter, rioters who viciously beat Capitol Police officers. And all of my Republican friends just looked the other way and said, well, if Donald Trump thinks that that's okay, then so be it. So, yeah, it seems like the story in Memphis is a lot more complicated than my friend from Tennessee would have us believe, which is why today we shouldn't pass this resolution. We should probably get to the bottom of what's happening. But it is just offensive to call this president the most pro-law enforcement president in the history of the country when he is endorsing and excusing violence being perpetuated on the people that serve us and protect us here in the United States Capitol. And for that reason, I will object.
Mr. President.
Objection is heard. The senator from Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. President. What the senator fails to mention is that the cities with the high crime problem, they are blue cities. They are blue cities. Also, what he should know is that 63% of the residents of Memphis support having the Memphis Safe Task Force and fighting the crime that is there. Now, Memphis had the highest rate per capita in the nation in 2024, with 2,501 instances of violent crime for every 100,000 people. Now, that is a stat that came from the FBI, and it is why the people in Memphis wanted us to move forward and do something about this. And since the start of the task force, overall violent crime rates have fallen 46% when compared to the same period last year. And homicides are down 50%. Carjackings and sexual assaults are down 60%. So when my colleague objects to this, he is objecting to what the good people of Memphis in this fabulous, iconic city are seeing, the results that they are seeing. They want Memphis to be the safest city in the country, not the most violent. So they have objected to the arrest of nearly 2,900 criminals in the last 50 days, including sex offenders, murderers, and other violent criminals. They've objected to the rescue of 116 missing children, 116 children that have been recovered. They've objected to over 300 known gang members being apprehended, and they've objected to the seizure of 470 illegal firearms. We are going to continue to work to make certain that Memphis is the safest city in the United States. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President.